Hi children of Standard 10 ICSE. So let's continue with our short story, The Pedestrian by Ray Bradbury. Okay, this is the second lecture and we stopped where I explained to you about the moon radiance. Okay, so we'll continue from there. He turned back on a side street, circling towards his home. That is where we are going to start with. So he turned back on a side street, circling around towards his home. He was within a block of his destination when the lone car turned a corner quite suddenly and flashed a fierce white cone of light upon him. He stood entranced, not unlike the night moth, stunned by the illumination and then drawn towards it. Now, the meaning of the word entranced over here is mesmerized. So he stood entranced, he stood fixed as if he was mesmerized. And what was he mesmerized by? That there was one single car which came. He was almost going to reach his home and a car appeared just out of somewhere. A lone car, just one car appeared, and that car flashed a beam of light. What is the description given over here? Flashed a fierce white cone of light upon him, and it was that light which fixed him to the ground. Okay, so here you can say that the author Ray Bradbury, he has used a metaphor. Okay, what is a metaphor over here? The not unlike a night moth. That means like a night moth, because two negatives make one positive. So not unlike a night moth means like a night moth. And he was stunned. So the night moth has been compared indirectly to the light which was thrown by the car. So it's an indirect comparison between the light thrown by the car and the night moth, as a result of which we get a metaphorical comparison over here. So you can use this as an example of a metaphor. Okay. Now, a metallic voice called to him, "Stand still, stay where you are, don't move." Now, this metallic voice called out to him over here. Again, the author has used imagery. Now, what sort of imagery is this? This is auditory imagery, where by the sound which has been conveyed through the words, you can imagine the person speaking. Now, who is the person speaking over here? A metallic voice. So, you can understand through auditory imagery. "Stand still, stay where you are, don't move." He halted. "Put up your hands." "But," he said, "your hands up or we'll shoot." The police, of course. But what a rare, incredible thing. In a city of 3 million, there was only one police car left. Wasn't that correct? Ever since a year ago, 2052, which was the election year, and the story is placed where? In 2053. Okay, so the election year was 2052. The force had been cut down from 3 cars to 1. Crime was ebbing. Ebbing means becoming lesser and lesser. So crime was ebbing. There was no need now for the police, save for this one lone car wandering the empty streets. Okay, there was only this one car. And why was crime ebbing? That is precisely what the author wants to show us over here. He has given us a setting of 2053, where in 2053 there will be no people only on the road. Automatically the crime will go, the crime rate has gone down. Okay, so crime was ebbing and there was no need now for a police, save for this one lone car wandering on the empty streets. "Your name?" said the police car in a metallic whisper. He couldn't see the men in it for the bright light in his eyes. "Leonard Mead," he said. "Speak up. Leonard Mead. Business or profession?" "I guess you could call me a writer." So when they asked him what his business or profession was, he gave his profession or business as a writer. He didn't give any other profession. Okay. So the police car was talking to itself and it said, "No profession," said the police car as if talking to itself. The light held him fixed. like a museum specimen. Now here again you see the author has used personification. The light has been personified to a human being, and it was as if this light was holding him fixed in that particular position. So there is personification over here of the light. Okay, held him fixed like a museum specimen. So the protagonist who has been the author has now used a simile. First he uses a personification to explain to you that the light held him fixed. So light is personified as if the light has captured him and held him fixed over there. And then it says that like a museum specimen. So the protagonist has been compared using a direct comparison. A simile has been used over here because the word like has been used. So he was like a museum specimen. Okay, the protagonist. So this is the example of a simile. That is a literary device. Needle thrust through his chest. You might say that, said Mr. Mead. He hadn't written in years. So for years he had not written anything because nobody was reading magazines. So he hadn't written anything. You might say that, said Mr. Mead. He hadn't written in years. Magazines and books didn't sell anymore. Everything went on in the tomb-like houses at night. He thought, continuing his fancy. The tombs, ill-lit by television light, where the people sat like the dead, the grey or multicolored lights, touching their faces but never really touching them. So these various lights which came out from the TV screens in front of which the people used to sit at night because they never came out on the road. So it was like he has used a simile over here again where he says people sat like the dead. So he has compared living people to the dead people using the word like. The grey or multicolored lights used to touch their faces. When you're sitting in front of a screen, those the various colors of those lights touch your faces, but actually they are not touching you, isn't it? But never really touching them. No profession, said the phonograph voice, hissing. What are you doing out? Walking, said Leonard Mead. Walking? Just walking, he said simply, but his face felt cold. Walking? Just walking. Walking? Yes, sir. Walking where? For what? So now that voice is asking him, where are you walking and for what are you walking? So he is giving a reply. The pedestrian, the lone pedestrian, the protagonist, Leonard Mead, he is giving a reply. Walking for air. Walking to see. Your address. 11th South St. James Street. And there is air in your house? You have an air conditioner, Mr. Mead? So that voice is asking him that you're walking out for air. Is there air in your house, or does your house have no air? Is it a vacuum? That is what they mean to ask when they are saying, is there air in your house? Do you have an air conditioner? So if you have air in your house, you are supposed to have an air conditioner, and that air conditioner will purify the air. So what are you walking out on the roads for air? Yes, so I have an air conditioner. And you have a viewing screen in your house to see with? No. No? There was a crackling quiet. That in itself was an accusation, as if he had done a big crime by not having a TV or a viewing screen in front of him. Are you married, Mr. Mead? No. Not married, said the police voice behind the fiery beam. The moon was high and clear among the stars, and the houses were grey and silent. Nobody wanted me, said Leonard Mead with a smile. Now the protagonist is trying to make light of the fact that he is not married, and he's saying, but nobody wanted me, so I didn't marry. So that's okay. Don't speak unless you are spoken to. Leonard Mead waited in the cold night. Just walking, Mr. Mead? Yes. But you haven't explained for what purpose. So he's saying you haven't been able to give us an explanation why you are walking out. What are you walking out for? If you say you're walking out for air, is there no air in your house? You don't have an air conditioner, you have one. So there is no need for you to walk out. That is what the police car is telling him. Okay. I explained for air and to see and just to walk. So Leonard Mead is explaining that I have already explained to you that I have come out on the road for air. I have come out to see. So I'm just walking. So the police car has said, well, for air, there has to be air in your house and you have to have an air conditioner. So there is no need for you to walk. Walk out for air. So that is also not accepted. Then he's saying to see, you should have a viewing screen in your house. There is nothing to see on the roads. What is there to see on the roads? Nothing. Okay. So, and you haven't explained to us any purpose. I explained. So he's saying for air, to see and just to walk. Have you done this often? He's asking him, have you done this thing often? Have you often walked out on the roads? Every night? For years. The police car sat in the center of the street with its radio throat faintly humming. Now see, the author has used over here personification. He has personified the car. The police car has been made into a human being. Personification, personified. Please write over there, it's a personification. Because the police car sat in the middle of the road. Now who is going to sit? A human being. So here the car has been personified as a human being which sat in the middle of the road. Okay. With its radio throat. So even the throat of a human being has been personified into the radio throat. Faintly humming. As if he was singing a tune. You know the meaning of humming, right? You sing, you say a tune with your lips closed. That is humming. So when you think about humming, that is an auditory image. So you can imagine the police car as a human being sitting in the middle of the road and humming with its radio throat. Okay, so it was humming. That is what it was doing. Is that all? He asked politely. Who asked politely? The protagonist, Mr. Mead, asked. Is that all? Yes, said the voice. Here, there was a slight pop. The back door of the police car sprang wide open. Get in. So the police car was giving him instructions. They said yes, and then the door opened with a pop. Means a soft explosive sound. That is the meaning of pop. Pop. That way. A slow explosive sound. And it opened the back door and it said get in. Wait a minute. I haven't done anything. Get in. I protest. Mr. Mead. He walked like a man suddenly drunk. The poor protagonist, he doesn't know what to do because he cannot retaliate, he cannot object, he cannot talk. It just shows that when you have a robot sitting in front of you, there is no chance. There is no option of a judgment because a robot is judging by something that is pre-fed into it. It will not consider your situation. It will not consider anything because it's not a human being. Everything has been preordained. Everything has been pre-designed. That if you see this answer, you have to do this. If you see this answer, you have to do this. If you see this answer, you have to do this. Everything is planned. So there is no chance of anybody judging you. He is saying that wait a minute, I haven't done anything. So I protest. These are the words that he is saying, but nothing. So the poor fellow, the poor protagonist, he walks in like a drunk man, as if he doesn't know what to do. So this is a simile, like a man suddenly drunk. As he passed the window of the car, he looked in because he's a human being, he's not a robot. So he looked into the front seat of the car. As he had expected, there was no one in the front seat. No one in the car at all. So it was just a robotic car. There was no human being inside. Get in. He put his hand to the door and peered into the back seat. Now he looked into the back seat. What was a back seat? A little cell. A little black jail with bars. There were bars in that jail and he was just supposed to get in. It smelled of riveted steel. It smelled of harsh antiseptic. It smelled too clean and hard and metallic. There was nothing soft over there. So there was absolutely no human being. So now here we find that Ray Bradbury, the author, has used olfactory imagery. What is olfactory imagery? Something which appeals to your sense. Okay, to your sense, to your nose it appeals. And what is it saying? That is olfactory imagery. So what is it saying? That the jail, that jail like thing which had bars at the back, and it was a little cell into which he had to go, and it smelled of riveted steel and of some antiseptic because it had been cleaned. It smelled too clean, hard and metallic. There was nothing soft. Okay, olfactory imagery. Now if you had a wife to give you an alibi, said the iron voice, but, and it stopped. So now what is the iron voice trying to tell him over here? That if you had a wife who would have given you an alibi. Okay, so, but he didn't have a wife to give him an alibi. But, where are you taking me? The car hesitated. Look again, children. Here again there is personification. The car has been personified into a human being. And the car hesitated. Just like a human being would hesitate, the car hesitated. Or rather gave a faint whirring click. Whirring click is a rattling click. As if information somewhere was dropping a card by a punch slotted card under electric eyes. So now the car hesitated and the car felt, oh, we must give him a reply. And now what was the reply? The reply was as if a card had been punched somewhere and that reply came in. And what came in under the electric eyes? The answer which came was, to the Psychiatric Center for Research on Regressive Tendencies. So that is the answer he got. What is the answer he got? That we are taking you to the Psychiatric Center for Research on Regressive Tendencies. What is the meaning of regressive? Regressive means returning to the previous. That means retrogress. To go back to the previous, less advanced stage. All because he was walking. That means you are a regressive person because you are walking. When does this happen? In 2053. The police car rolled through the night avenues, flashing its dim lights ahead. They passed one house on one street a moment later. Now, a moment later, what happened? The car began to move and they came to one house. They passed a house. Okay. But this particular house had all of its electric lights brightly lit. Every window a loud yellow illumination, square and warm in the cool darkness. Now here children, Ray Bradbury has used visual imagery. Okay, what is the visual imagery he has used over here? You can imagine that the car passed what? A house which had electric lights brightly lit. Every window a loud yellow illumination. A square window with loud yellow illumination, warm in the cool darkness. Because you remember in the beginning he told us it was a November night, so it was cold outside. But this house was warmly lit. It had yellow illumination everywhere. So this is the visual imagery. That's my house, said Leonard Mead. No one answered him. Because it's a robotic car, isn't it? The car moved down. Again we have visual imagery over here. See, the car moved down the empty riverbed streets and off away, leaving the empty streets with the empty sidewalks and no sound, no motion, all the rest of the chill November night. It just shows how hard-hearted it had become. The robot has become so hard-hearted because there are no humans involved. And now the only pedestrian who was on the road, Leonard Meal, he also has been put into jail. So henceforth for the entire month of November, there will be no sound, no motion, all the rest of the chill November night. Okay, so the author actually leaves us on a very sad note that if we don't wake up, then this is going to be the state in 2053 if we humans don't wake up immediately. We need to shake ourselves as to where the human civilization is going. Okay, with that we come to an end of the explanation of this poem. Now I remember I had given you a note on the title. Please take out your note. And when I gave you the note on the title, I also gave you the setting, okay, because the notes were combined. So I also gave you the setting. So now we are going to continue with the title of the poem. Now in the title of the poem, I want you to add one little thing, because I added this later. If you open your text to the note which I had given you, come to the title. Leonard Mead is identified in the entire story by his peculiarity as a pedestrian. Correct? Now please pick up your pens and add this piece over there. The title tells us how the protagonist is viewed. The title tells us how the protagonist is viewed. Second point, the police car rejects his claim of being a writer. The police car rejects his claim that he is of his being a writer. So the first thing has been rejected. Then he is not married, so he can't have the identity of being a husband, because he is not married. He can't have the identity of being a husband. Then third point. So the first one is the police car rejects his claim of being a writer. He isn't married, so he can't have the identity of being a husband. Then his neighbors don't acknowledge him. His neighbors are also not acknowledging him, because he has never met his neighbors. No, the neighbors are always inside their own houses. Then ultimately he can be identified by his peculiarity of walking. So what is the ultimate identification that he gets? Ultimately he can be identified by his peculiarity of walking as a pedestrian. So the only identity he has is that of a pedestrian, because he used to walk out on the streets. So ultimately he can be identified only as that. And then we continue, and hence the title is justified. So with that we come to the setting of the story. The author A. Bradbury, look in your notes. The author A. Bradbury got the story published in 1951, but the opening paragraph says he was alone in this world of AD 2053, or as good as alone. That would mean approximately 3 decades from now, means from the time where we are, okay, because the story was published in 1951, but he has depicted something which is going to happen in 2053. So it's a dystopian future that he is talking about. The dystopian future of AD 2053 is what he is talking about when the story was first published, okay. So that would mean approximately 3 decades from now, from the time where we are. Seeing the year of publication, we can say that the story has been set. Now the next I have written, the next line is by mistake, so please cancel that and you add over here, the story has been set in a dystopian imaginary future of 2053. Full stop. So cancel that imagining and all that up to future. And you add this, in a dystopian imaginary future of 2053. To make the setting a place which is familiar to the readers, he has placed it in a city in USA, as hinted by referring to the Arizona desert. Inverted commas. He could imagine himself upon the center of a plain, a wintry, windless Arizona desert with no house. So you have to close the inverted commas over there. It's a direct, I have taken it from your textbook. Now you can add this note. He wants the reader to feel the setting is real. Okay, even though he is telling about 2053, he wants to connect it to the present times, and therefore he makes the protagonist imagine himself as if he is in the Arizona desert and it's all wintry and it's all windless over there. Okay, now I want you all to add these points. The story is set in November. The story is set in November, near the onset of winter, signifying the advent of death. Dead leaves are scattered on the ground. Dead leaves scattered on the ground are etched with a skeletal pattern. Skeletal pattern in inverted commas, single inverted commas. It's from your textbook. So dead leaves scattered on the ground are etched with a skeletal pattern. When the protagonist chooses his walk that day, he walks in a westerly direction, inverted commas, the direction in which the sun sets. It also signifies the advent of death. I'll repeat it. When the protagonist chooses his walk that day, he walks in a westerly direction, inverted commas, the direction in which the sun sets. It also signifies the advent of death. So he is showing all this as if there is going to be death around. It's a foreshadowing, okay? Then continue. The setting in the story that the author has created for the protagonist, who is a non-conformist, who is walking, makes it a believable world for the present day readers. That is why he has given us the setting and this imagination of an Arizona desert, because we can imagine it. So it's as if he is linking the present day reader to the future of 2053. In the present digital world, where everyone is engrossed in using technological gadgets such as computers, television screens, tablets, internet, web chat, etc., the author has warned that if we continue making such advances in technology without thinking about their consequences, we will be producing listless, spiritless, unthinking zombies. So it's very important to remember that though technology is a boon, it can turn out to be a bane if we don't realize where we are going and what we are heading for in the future. If you don't have actual humans to take note of the surrounding, to take note of the circumstances around it, or like in legal terms we would say to take note of circumstantial evidence. If you don't do all this, then you're just going to have robots, and then that will not be a good place for the human society. So that is what the author Ray Bradbury is trying to convey to us, and this title, therefore, The Pedestrian, is very, very set in a perfect situation. Okay, so with that I have completed the title and the setting with you, and in my next lecture, that will be module 3, I wish to complete the story if I can, because we have lots to do still. We have to do the critical appreciation and a lot of other things which I will discuss with you in the next module. So till then, please revise everything, study your work and go through both the lectures so that you are able to understand better your third module. So here's your English facilitator Himangi, wishing you all happy studying. Learn both your modules well, and all my ICSE students, I always wish the best for you all. Your board is excellent. It is a ICSE board, and don't get scared. If you study your work, if you read your text over and over again, you will surely do well. Okay, bye everyone.